everyone, and welcome to lecture one. Before we proceed through the program, there are certain things I feel we must understand together as a community, as a group, in order for us to get the best results. This is not to say you guys don't know this already. In passing or in bits and pieces, you must be quite aware of it. But this video, the intention of this video is to ensure that it all ties in together so you understand why we're doing this. Because to be honest, a society is segmented too much, I feel. So when you look at academia, so it's more like an intellectual aspect of it, the marks, the scores, and the competitiveness level when you are at work, professionally or otherwise. Then again, when you come back to society, in your relatives, neighbors, circle, you are judged based on how much money you're making, or like, let's say, how rich you are, how much wealth you've made, and the other things about your personal life and those aspects. So all of this looks very distinct, separate, and looks unconnected to one another. So simply put, you approach it differently, don't you? Like I have. Because I am an entirely new person when I'm speaking with my relatives. I'm a completely new person when I'm speaking, a completely different person when I'm speaking with my friends. And I'm also a different person when I'm speaking with my colleagues or strangers. Mostly I can connect with strangers better because that's where I feel I can be more myself. So those aspects I think we have to integrate in order for us to either firstly save time, stop the drama, and stop the putting on a fake persona and wasting time. And then at the end of the day, coming back, and when you're going to bed, you realize that I don't feel like myself today. I feel like something is missing in my life. That's because we put on different personas that actually don't align with what we truly want in life. Because honestly, there is something called desire guilt, or ambition guilt, or aspiration guilt, with which comes with ambitious people, or with anyone who wants anything. Simply put, you're stepping out of line. There is a line society has drawn for you, and you're stepping out of line. This is a baseline. People are expected to have only this. So you're supposed to be married at this particular age, or you're supposed to have certain goals that you achieve in life by this certain age. And if you get any further than that, then society or your neighbors, relatives, friends may or may not like it. So when you want something more, you're going to have to go through the let's say, discomfort of being misunderstood, the discomfort of, let's say, being called a stupid, or I would say, in a way, they can see you as somebody who's foolish and who's not smart enough to live. So you have to go through all of that. Of course, that is changing a lot. I would say the globalization aspect of what happened in India or any Southeast Asian country has changed that culturally, and of course, that has intentionally changed us mentally and spiritually as well. However, there are still glass ceilings that people have to break through. Firstly, let's understand one thing. Okay, I thought I just should show you this. All right. So usually when we talk about the human aspect, we draw the spiritual aspect first inside as a core, followed by the mental aspect and the physical aspect and the environment and so on. But the time when I wake up every day, as a normal human being living in India in a particular city, I would approach it in the reverse. Like when I wake up, I'm tied to the physical aspect of my world immediately. Like go open the gate or make chai, or if you have a homemaid who comes in to help, and you will have to be thinking about that. Your relatives, friends, immediate family members, they do not care about your aspirations. They do not wake up caring about how you feel spiritually. I mean, like, why would they, right? They don't have to. They just look at whether or not you're present. They don't care if you're a good person. They don't care if you have ambition. They do not care if you have had a bad day at work. They only care if you're physically present there. That's how your relatives will also view you, which is why you feel so worthless when you walk into a wedding with your probably your old classmates or your relatives or your old neighbors. They don't know the person you are. They just know that you exist. That is where we exist in the physical plane. But the minute I wake up in a particular day, I approach my day physically, linked to my physical presence in this world, right? Followed by again the mental aspiration. Say you're a professor and you have multiple competitors, applying for the same whatever program or academic program in a particular university, right? There you're judged by your mental capacity or by your intellectualism, what you are saying, and how your ideas are going to be shaping the world around you in a little way or in a big way, your influence part. These people do not just care about your physical presence, they also care about what you say. So your professional aspect, suppose you're an influencer, all your followers would fall under the mental sphere. Then I approach, so at around 7 a.m. I start my day thinking about how I tie to the world, how I tie to my in-laws, or how I tie to my, my immediate circle, my immediate physical circle, to be honest, my immediate ambient environment. Which is why your neighbor or your landlord doesn't care if you're a good person or not. I mean, like, he doesn't care, right? Because your interaction with them is largely physical, just money give and take. Now, we need to ask ourselves how many people in my life fall under the physical zone, the physical sphere, and how much time do I spend thinking about them? How much time do I spend trying to prove something to them? Whereas to them, my mental and spiritual states are irrelevant. One thing. Then coming back to the mental state. Of course, people here, they don't care about the problems that you have at home. Say you're having a plumbing problem at home. The people in the mental sphere, it wouldn't matter to them. Why would it matter to them? Then coming on to the spiritual aspect. Sometimes close friends and those who really care about how you feel or how you tie to the entire world or how the world makes you feel, emote, whether you're demotivated or not, or do you feel purposeful or not. People who care about how you care about purpose in life fall under the spiritual zone. Of course, at the end of it, it's just you and the supreme being, you and God, but there are people who help you there without expecting anything in return. But of course, there would be gurus, coaches, or probably tarot card readers or astrologers or whoever might, they might care about how you feel about your existence and whether or not your existence feels that its needs are taken care of. So they can fall under the spiritual aspect. Now, the problem is if you're asking for spiritual help and you're going to have to help them both mentally and physically, like there is a chance that there is a lot of drama that happens. If they don't get what they want from you, then that would be a problem. Of course, you understand what I'm saying, right? Like, if you don't pay your astrologer, he's not going to be happy with you. Those who simply care about the fact that you're alive and they care about how you feel tied to the world, tied to the mortal world, and those who care about whether or not you feel free, those people fall under the spiritual aspect of it. They don't care about your successes. They don't measure you with the successes you have. Of course, they might care about whether or not you are mentally a good person, whether you take steps to actively practice goodness. Do you say no where you have to say no? They would care about that, of course. That partially does fall under the spiritual aspect. Now, we need to understand when you wake up, this is the core. Ultimately, when you go to bed, are you going to be satisfied about living through today's day? So that's going to fall under the spiritual aspect. These can also, the people under spiritual aspect can also be influencers who don't actually speak with you. This is where we talk about role models. They are people, they exist out there in the void, out there in this world. They don't know me, but everything they say or do influences my decisions or influences about how I feel about life or in entirety about myself. Now, I hope that makes sense. Now, you can categorize how many people you have in each of these zones, and are you giving fair enough balance to all of this? This is where it comes down to the fact that when you have aspirations, despite the fact that you have a child, you start feeling guilty about it because your child, by nature, because they are growing and they're young and they're fragile, they fall under the physical plane with you. Just your physical presence, your physical care, the money you give them, the care that you give them, the protection that you give them, only that matters. Your child need not think about your mental or spiritual states. But that is not to say that they will never care about how you feel. It's that their value, the value that they attach to you only matters in the physical plane. But that doesn't mean you're not allowed to have aspirations and ambitions. That goes for your parents, your relatives, and other people as well. Let's understand one other thing is, am I being brainwashed? You're not brainwashed by media or society or elites by any chance. Of course, we are, but I think we're snapping out of that little by little. But what I'm trying to say here is, say you want to invest in something, you want to buy something. but you happen to stop at a print store for taking a bunch of printouts, and then you hear something bad about that certain product or certain investment. Now, you would take a step back because you are on the way to do something and you hear two people conversing negatively about something that you want to buy or invest in. There, at that particular spot, I'm being brainwashed because the decision is mine, but the opinion is not mine. It's coming from someone else. But at that moment of time, I begin doubting my own judgment. I'm not saying your judgment is right or wrong. I'm just telling you now you have given away the remote or the locus of control to the outside world. How many times in life have you had friends and family tell you that this is safe, this is right, and it turned out to be the exact opposite? And when you go to them with the complaint that this does not work out the way that they said that it would, they would tell you that's how it is for everybody. We try to find a way around it. Now they're contradicting their own claims, isn't it? So that's where you were brainwashed. When there is no remote locus of control or freedom to pivot in your hands, then that's when you know you're brainwashed. So, to be honest, you can brainwash yourself into thinking that you belong to the 1%. You can brainwash yourself into thinking nothing is impossible for you. That is also, in a way, brainwashing, which will, by logic, it can be more beneficial than brainwashing yourself into thinking that something is impossible, because life is risky and dangerous at some point of time or the other. And if you're brainwashed into thinking that when you make safer choices, you're going to be safe, that would be the biggest scam there is. There is a way to live safely. But if that's perfectly fine for you, if that feeds your soul, don't want to take any risk, just follow your uncles, aunts, just follow your neighbors. Do not have any sense of, let's say, self preservation. Just follow the rules which are laid out neatly in front of you, then go ahead with it. Which is why I sort of kind of, I would say, appreciate the Chinese culture that they teach individualism, probably because they have the one child policy, I'm not very sure. Each of them plays chess individually, each of them learns martial arts individually, each of them scores individually. So even though they are listening to everyone else, the course of their life, they know for a fact that will not move forward if they do not take steps, that nobody else is going to come there trying to make them feel comfortable. So although there is conformity, there is a lot of individualism there. And I think sadly that is missing a little bit in India and many Southeast Asian countries, where people make decisions for you and promise you something, but then in return you get nothing. So this is not that they're doing it, your uncles, your culture or your society is bad, your community is bad. I'm not just telling you about your family circle, even with school. They just say you just have to pass and your life is settled, which is not what happens at all. They say you purchase an apartment here, and because we don't purchase an apartment here, when are you going to do it? Life is very short, and finally you regret the investment. So people make predictions for you without the guarantee that it will work, and you end up listening to it because you are afraid of the consequences of not listening to it. If I had rather just weighed down my options and looked at alternatives in that time span I had spent speaking to these people who have not done the research themselves, probably I would be better off. You get to decide what influences you, and if you don't, what will be left back is a lot of, I would say, depression and hostility towards the world. There's something which we need to understand, that when we write or post something on the internet, it remains there forever, more or less, unless you delete it, of course. But there will be some sort of footprint that has already happened. Similarly, everything that you say in this world and everything that you do, it can be a lie, it can be something that you say just for formality, it remains in the field, in the void, in some form or the other. It does impact people around you. Now, the guy at the print store who may have said something about a certain investment or product, he would not have dreamt that that has influenced your decision. He would not have known that his simple presence has actually shaped your worldview. But it did happen, right? That is what we call the butterfly effect. Of course, what I said is an enlarged version of it. So, butterfly effect is basically somewhere around the world, in some corner, a butterfly flaps its wings, and that in turn, indirectly, in a snowballing effect manner, causes a storm elsewhere in the world. So, the butterfly out there in probably the Amazon rainforest has absolutely no idea that it has caused, let's say, some kind of a cyclone in Barbados or somewhere else. So that's called the butterfly effect, and which is why when you walk through the world, you are a generator, a transceiver. Everything that you do, you say, the way you dress, the way you walk, things that you say yes to, things that you say no to, your simple presence, your eye contact, everything influences people's worldview. Which is why I always say, do not care about image, care about what you want to tell the world and be that person every day. Because it's very hard to put on this mask and take it off each time, firstly, and people might get the wrong idea that this is right. So instead, be the message that you want to tell the world every day. The way you dress, the way you walk, the way you say things. If you cannot tolerate a certain behavior, make sure that you embody that intolerance every day. It could be wrong, it could be dangerous, but at least you're being original there. You're not putting out, spam content in this world. So this is a sort of responsibility that we have towards the world that has given us so much. Forget about the people who we do feel absolutely no gratitude to. But this world has given us education, has given us food, has given us air, clean water. At least for the most part, it has tried. The world has tried. At least the physical world has tried. We have a responsibility to the world as well. That through my action, I'm healing something, or I'm giving back something. I'm just setting the balance right. So the other thing about Stranger Things is that there's a concept, there is a talk about hive mind, and I strongly believe that people who fall under the same frequency of thinking uh, have some sort of a connection with one another, which is similar to the hive mind. So say I am solving a certain disciplinary problem with myself. I'm solving a certain emotional problem with myself, or a certain family trauma that is attached to me. I indirectly, unknowingly, unconsciously, subconsciously end up healing it, partly, partially, or fully, for those people who have the same frequency as myself. Now, there is always a quote that says, like, misfortune does not always comes in two. And you might have heard of it. Say there are two friends, and two friends have had a financial loss or a breakup or a divorce around the same time. So people wonder, is it because they are influencing one another? Maybe not actively, but actually they are. If they're tied, they're really tied with their frequencies. This is for people who are actively in contact with one another, but also for people who are similar but at different points of, different points and locations, and those who probably don't even know each other face to face. Things that you do and say, what affects the void, it will heal the world. At least that's what the spiritual circle thinks globally. This is just like how a random reel from the US or the random reel from Japan or Korea falls on your feed because you've been searching the same thing that they have. That's how I would say the algorithm in social media, that is a perfect mirror of how our world works. Of course, change in social media and that void space is much faster than it is here. So we do have a responsibility to make sure that whatever you put out is being authentic. So if you want to solve a problem in this world, start thinking that you're the solution to the problem and start acting that way. Of course, there will be, there will be pushbacks, but then you can decide whether you really want to pursue this problem or not, whether you want to get through these pushbacks. So authenticity is key here if you want to achieve any sort of result. So when you're solving a fitness problem, you're probably solving it for millions others unknowingly. Maybe you really have not put out content, or you may not have launched a course. But if you have solved you have turned off a switch within yourself, there's a good chance it has happened elsewhere too. Like, I strongly believe that. Then the other thing is, like, when you want to solve a problem, when you start attracting problems. Reason is you have the universe is not doing it consciously. It operates like a supercomputer, operates in alignment. So basically, it's a matchmaking software. That's what I would say. So when you are powerful, or you think or believe or start feeling powerful, you start attracting powerful problems because you have energetically matched yourself with that problem. But in the conscious world, in the physical zone, you would think like, oh my God, look at what's happening to me. I have attracted bad luck. And not necessarily. You have attracted something because you have told the universe that you are the same frequency. So either you become one with the problem, either you integrate yourself and become part of the problem, either that, or you end up neutralizing or defeating. So when I say defeating, you can't really destroy anything in Like if you're a science student, you will understand like you can't really destroy energy, you can only transmute it from one form to another, right? So here what happens is you neutralize it so that it does not work anymore. You're basically handicapping it. So I hope that makes sense. And these are distinct ideas that you may have to revisit later on and which will make sense as the program progresses. Because we are taught that spirituality, tarot card reading, religion, science, metaphysics, quantum physics, society, family trauma, crime in this world, technology are all different zones or different subjects. They have no connection to one another. Sadly, that's not how systems work. These are the lens given to everything that exists within the same space, isn't it? Ideas, abstract or not, like physical objects or not, they're all tied together. Although they're different parts, they all belong to the same computer. So this is, if we do not understand how this is, otherwise you will feel the sort of, I would say, pushback from yourself that you are doing something criminal, that I'm thinking and doing something that is not okay with my circle, that's not okay with my culture, that's not okay with my profession. The truth is, you're all part of the same thing. They just have different labels. They're all different subjects, but you need to pass all of them in order to pass the entire exam, the entire grade. That's how it works. So whether or not you're going to be very active in this program, understand that everything is linked and we just have different names for each of it. One example I just like to wrap up. If you go just Google and or on Instagram, if you look at many spiritual or mindset gurus, they will tell you with proof that poverty or I would say poor financial decisions are not a mental problem, they're actually a spiritual problem. This person is poor in managing finances because he does not love money. He does not love money because he has family trauma, personal trauma, or is attached his self worth to something else. That he feels money is a luxury. He does not feel money is a normal thing to earn. That is why he's poor financially. He blames it on the world. He blames shifts. He has had family trauma. So, what has happened 100, 200 years ago, which has influenced his grandmother's, great grandmother's, his grandfather or his aunt, and then finally his parents and himself, or whatever his siblings are doing to affect him. That is affecting his financial decisions, which in turn will affect the family that he's leading and his children thereon. So it is actually a spiritual problem. Spiritual problem, what is spiritual problem? However you feel about your connection to being alive, however you feel you relate to the world around you, that is spirituality. It's not about going just being religious or just praying. It's not just that. Why are you even praying? Why are you approaching something beyond the zone of the physical? There is something beyond. There's a part of you that is tied to that beyond, right? That's why we approach things spiritually. We are a projection. There is something inside of us that is projecting into the physical world, which is why the physical body or the mind moves. There's something that is animating us. There's a code elsewhere that comes from elsewhere. The back end is spirituality. So if you have a back end problem, you're not going to succeed anywhere else. At least I can tell you that, for because I've seen extremely talented, intelligent, capable people, probably even with the financial capabilities, unable to succeed because they're stuck in cycles of curses within their families. Why families matters? Because you spend most of your time under the same roof with them, and if those people are not enriching your experience of living, you're going to rot. This is how family trauma, spirituality, everything ties into another. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it wasn't a very long lecture, but this is the opening lecture, and this is going to set the foundation for everything that we're going to do forward. Feel free to forward this video to somebody else. Hope it makes sense to them, and if they have the patience to listen to it entirely, they would. Have a great day.